Hi guys, and welcome back to the Animal Spotlight. So just as the title says, we are going to be talking about the Panther Chameleon this week. Thank you so much to Marisol Roca for suggesting this on the last Animal Spotlight video. And also I wanted to go ahead and give you a really big thank you for always being super active on the comments of my videos. Your comments are always super appreciated. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned in previous videos, Panther Chameleons are one of my absolute favorite chameleons. They are so beautiful. Their colors are absolutely stunning and vibrant, and they are just overall an absolutely beautiful chameleon, and they're super interesting too. These guys are from the tropical rainforest of northern and eastern Madagascar, where they stay in smaller trees kind of towards the bottom of the forest floor, just because they have a lot of predators in the wild. They are a very slow moving lizard, so they are preyed on by snakes and birds and sometimes even monkeys. So they do like to climb just like all the other chameleons, but they stay on the smaller trees in those rainforests. We first began importing these animals into the United States in the 1980s, and then in the past 15 years their popularity exploded. And that's because when we first started importing them, they were all wild caught and they didn't really live that long because of stress and because people didn't really know how to properly take care of them. But now that we know how to take care of them and they are mostly captive bred, they can live for much longer and their popularity exploded. In the wild, these guys only live for about a year, but now in captivity, the males can live for about 5 years and sometimes even longer, and the females usually cap out at about 2 to 3, especially if they are breeding, because laying eggs for a female is very stressful, so it lowers her life expectancy quite a bit. But if she never lays eggs, then she can live actually a little longer than the males at about 8 years. These are a larger species of chameleons, with the males getting to about 17 inches and the females staying a little smaller than that at about 10 to 14. As is very obvious, these guys have beautiful colors, but contrary to what a lot of TV shows and advertisements, especially paint advertisements, like to portray, chameleons don't change colors based on their surroundings. These guys will change colors if they are stressed out or angry or happy or relaxed, or if a female is gravid, she'll have a different color. So they basically change colors just like other reptiles, like bearded dragons and stuff like that, except for their color changing is obviously much more vibrant, like going from greens to blues to reds and yellows. But just know, if you happen upon one of these guys, just because it's in a green tree doesn't mean it's gonna be green. Another few key features of Panther Chameleons are gonna be those tongue-like feet. They have 5 toes on those feet, so 2 are connected and then 3 are connected to make tongs so they can grip the vines that they walk on. And then they also have those cone-shaped eyes that can actually move independently of one another, and they can focus on 2 different things. So they can look at a leaf over here and a bug over here in 2 different directions, which I always thought was really cool. And that eyesight is really good too, because they have to be able to see flying flies or gnats or insects from pretty long distances, so they actually have really good eyesight. And also, these are a diurnal species, which means that they are going to be very active in the day and they're going to do all their hunting and movement during the day. Male Panther Chameleons are extremely aggressive towards other males, and Panther Chameleons in general will be seen in the wild just alone because they don't really like being around other chameleons. The only time in the wild that you're going to see a Panther Chameleon with another Panther Chameleon is during mating season, which is from January to May, and after that they just kind of go on by themselves again. And if 2 males do end up coming face to face, they will flare up their bodies to make themselves look bigger, and they'll change colors and hiss at each other until one ultimately backs down, or they could end up physically fighting over that territory. And it is important to note that Panther Chameleons come from Madagascar, but they come in a variety of colors called locales because they are based on what part of Madagascar they come from. So some of the big ones are the nosy bee and the sambava, and their colors will actually vary based off of where they are found in the wild. So in their natural habitats, these guys will eat insects. They eat worms and crickets and flies and anything like that. And another one of the big things about Panther Chameleons, or any chameleons, that makes them so interesting are those tongues. If you've ever seen a chameleon eat, it is absolutely mind-blowing how long and fast and precise their tongues are. So a panther chameleon's tongue is usually about 1.5 times the length of its body. So its tongue by itself is longer than its entire body. And it works a lot like a bow and arrow or the hind legs of a kangaroo works, where it's going to use muscles and spring action to spring that tongue forward to catch the insect. So when the chameleon is at rest, its entire tongue is in its mouth, and then when it spots prey that it wants to get, it moves its tongue towards the front of its mouth, and accelerator muscles will actually propel the tongue out in whichever direction that the chameleon is aimed at. Once that tongue has been prepared out, the only thing that the chameleon can really control is making it stop early, and it does that by a tendon that runs down that tongue, which basically can just change the distance that the tongue is being launched. And then at the tip of the tongue, there is an abrasive, sticky patch that actually has like flaps around it so that the tip of the tongue can hit the insect and kind of wrap around it to pull it back. And then those muscles just contract and bring the insect back to the chameleon. And when it comes back, it's nowhere near as fast as when it was launched, because once you have the insect, you don't really need to go fast. But yeah, those muscles just contract it back into the chameleon's mouth, and then it has its food, hopefully. In captivity, these guys can be an amazing pet. I don't have one of these yet, but this is on my list of things that I need. I definitely wouldn't consider them a beginner pet just because of their care requirements and their caging requirements and humidity requirements and all of that stuff, but they could make a really good pet. This is not meant to be a care guide. This is just talking a little bit about them in captivity. If you are going to get one of these, you need to do a lot of research. That is not this video. Definitely read a bunch of articles and watch people who actually have these guys tell you how to take care of them. But very briefly, just from what I've read, I'll go over just some quick care requirements for them. So in terms of an enclosure, these guys are going to need a cage that is mostly, if not all, screen walls. So the Zoomed Reptibreeze or the Zilla, I think it's called Open Air, they make really good ones. And there's also a brand of cages called Dragon Strand cages. And those Dragon Strand cages are actually made specifically for chameleons. They're actually really cool. They're a bit on the pricey side, but like I said, they're made specifically for chameleons. So they actually have areas to clip branches, and they have like a pan at the bottom that can catch all the drippage so your enclosure isn't sopping wet. And they're really cool cages if you want to go that route. If not, any pet store is going to sell the Zilla or the Reptibreeze cages. But it's very important that their cages are screened in on all sides because they have to have a large amount of ventilation. And the very smallest you're going to want to go for that cage, since they are a larger species of chameleon, is 18 by 18 by 36. And with some of the males, you're actually going to need to go bigger eventually anyway. But at very, very smallest, 18 by 18 by 36, which I think is the large Reptibreeze. So if you want to be on the safe side, you need to go with the extra large Reptibreeze. Like I said, these guys live in small trees in the wild, so they are going to need lots of climbing room. So you're going to want to make sure to have plenty of branches and vines. You can buy the fake bendy vines. So one of the best things that you can do for that is to buy a potted tree. Trees like pothos, I think that's how you say that. The weeping fig trees and umbrella trees are going to be your best bet there. And you can actually just leave it in the pot and put it in the enclosure. And then if you have a dripper or a mister, you can have it drip into the pot to water the plant. Or on the other hand, you can use all fake things. You can get fake plants and branches and vines and all of that. Whichever way you want to go, just make sure that there is a lot of places for them to climb and that they do have a few areas that they can go in and just hide behind leaves or behind plants, because as with all reptiles, they are going to need some place that they could go and feel safe and secure. And if you're going to go with a real plant or real plants, it's actually going to be better because it's going to help keep that humidity up. But make sure that you're not just going to Home Depot and buying a plant from there and sticking it straight in there, because those plants can have pesticides in the soils. I would suggest going to places online that specifically sell plants for animals, like joshsfrogs.com or thebiodude.com sells plants like that too, and they grow those plants in all organic, pesticide-free environments. I know in some areas there are nurseries where you can go and buy plants from, and they actually will tell you if they use pesticides in the soils or not, and sometimes they even offer pesticide-free alternatives for reptiles. I don't have anything like that near me that I'm aware of, but if you do, that would be an amazing place to go as well. So since they like live plants, bioactive setups would be a really cool way to go if you want to give them a naturalistic setup like they would have in the tropical rainforest. And if not, you can leave the bottom of the cage empty, especially if you have one of those dragon strand cages, because they have pans that pull out, or you can put repti carpet in the bottom or paper towels or anything like that. As for lighting and temperatures, the ambient temperature in the tank can be room temperature, but they are going to need a basking spot of about 88 to 95 degrees, which you would accomplish using a basking light, and make sure that there is a branch under that light so that they can bask. And then you're also going to have a UVB light on the top of that tank because they are diurnal. So just make sure that you have a UVB tube light on the top of your tank. Everywhere that I was reading suggested the ReptiSun 5.0 for that. And like I've mentioned before, they have to have high humidity, but their tanks can't be soaking wet all the time. So their humidity is going to stay about 50 to 60%, but it's going to need to spike over 75% throughout the day. The best way to do that is to get an automatic misting system or a dripper, or if you want, you can spray it by hand with a spray bottle a few times a day. Just keep an eye on those temperatures. But the automatic mister is going to be the best way to go, just because if you need to leave the house for the day or anything like that, you can rely on that mister to spray down your tank when you're gone. And just make sure that those leaves in that tank are getting sprayed down, whether they're real or fake, because the chameleon will drink off of the leaves. They aren't really known to drink water from the bottom of the enclosure from a dish, but you can have one in there just to help keep that humidity up. And as I said before, these guys are going to eat insects, so crickets, flightless fruit flies when they're babies, superworms, hornworms, waxworms. You can also do dubia roaches and silkworms, anything like that. Just make sure that they are being dusted in calcium, but just know that they are not the biggest fans of being handled. While there are some that get handled down and tolerate handling, most of the time chameleons aren't really the ones to be handled. They're usually just a reptile that you get to put on display and observe. But with all those colors, they are so beautiful to look at, so they would make an absolutely amazing observation animal. But yeah guys, that's about all I have on those guys. Maybe you learned something. If so, awesome. Maybe you just wanted to watch me talk about Panther Chameleons, and that's awesome too. If you have any other suggestions on what animal I should do next, you can leave those in the comments below. The next one, which actually I'm about to film right now, is going to be the dwarf caiman. And then after that, I don't know. What do you guys want to see? If you're not already following me on Instagram, you can follow me over there at l.622, where I post pictures of my animals throughout the week. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. I put out new videos every single Sunday. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.